What aspirations in music do you currently have?
So that changes like every day.
Night and
I
day?
I get distracted and I end up with one thing or another. So I've been trying to get kind of like with the whole thing I was talking about with learning all of the things that Slash does when he plays is to sort of go through all of like my favorite guitar players, favorite like
Hmm.
instrumentalists and
Right.
just really just play all of the things that I know from them so that I can get like just kind of get like a common vocabulary of what I would want to, like kind of what things I like from them so that I could sort of steal and sort of make my own sound palette. So that's something that I'm really kind of always sort of hearkening back to. It's kind of like a warm blanket when I play that stuff because it's, kind of like the thing that I was doing the most when I was growing up. It was playing, sitting down playing guitar to to music and figuring stuff out. They call it transcribing.
Hmm.
Um, but I think one of the things that I want to accomplish with that is to start to develop a voice for like writing and see if I can on my own. Yeah, I mean, I've done some compositions on my own, but I see that they fall kind of like within a similar category to each other. So I need to sort of like kind of get out of my comfort zone a little bit and be a
Right.
little bit
Right.
more, being uh a little bit more unpredictable to my own style.
Hmm. That's understandable. I mean, on like bad days, um, like if you had a bad day at work, or if you remember your days in school, did did music bring you clarity? Like when you picked your guitar up, or you smash up on the drums or whatever, did that clear your head?
I'd say 95% of the time.
Yeah, because
And
that works for me too.
yeah, and I'd say that the 5% where it didn't is where I'm already at a point with my day where things have already gone off the rails
Hmm.
and they're kind of, they're kind of unsalvageable. And I'm in this
Right.
kind of space where, instead of me thinking, oh, well, you know what, let me just sort of revert back
Hmm.
to something that I like and, that's kind of natural and nice.
Hmm.
I would choose to do something that was hard and it was
Right.
tough and
Right.
and
Yeah.
so it's kicking my butt plus there's other stuff that's kicking my butt. So at that point I'm just like, all right, yeah, maybe not. Maybe do something different.
Mm.
But at
The
that point I would just sort of like grumble and have to put my instrument down, and walk away from it and, go, get some water or something.
you know when I would see rocker dudes in concert, and then they smash the guitar on the speaker, or the speaker cabinets, or on the stage and all of that, or just I don't know, just throw them somewhere, and I'm like, wow.
I used to have such that used to annoy me a lot. And
Yeah,
then and
it
then
annoyed me too because I didn't have the money to buy those type of
exactly,
guitars.
exactly. And I had a friend, uh yeah, I mean, I guess he was a friend. I mean, he was an acquaintance. Well, so I had a friend who had a band, was guitar player. Uh he posted on his social media that he was going to destroy one of his guitars at the
Mm.
show. And they played at the
Wow.
Roxy, which out of all the places in LA, I mean, I'm really happy to have to play the Troubadour,
Hmm.
but I really wish I would have been able to play the Roxy. That
Oh yeah.
venue, I've seen so many iconic like bands, and
Hmm.
I've had so many really great times there. It would have been nice to have seen it from the other side,
Hmm.
but I just never got a chance to do it. So, anyways, he's playing the Roxy, and I go to the show, and I didn't realize I had posted that on his social, and I go to the show and I'm the third person that's there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else that's there are the other bands and you know because what happens with some of these like pay to play gigs is that you get the you get the band that's playing, you get whoever they get brought in, and it's essentially sort of just like this revolving door of fans because the fans really don't stay for the other groups.
Right.
They go in, they see their friend's band, hey, we're here
Mm-hmm.
for support. They really don't even like the music. They're just there because they know
Mm-hmm.
the person and they don't want that person. They feel bad that that person had asked them to do the thing, so they're just like, all right. And then they go out and go to the bar down the street and not subject themselves to some of the stuff that they'll hear. And so anyway, so my friend's band was one of these, right? Was just kind of like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
great. So they finished playing and the guy's got this guitar which is in just not good shape at all. And he starts to he takes it and he wields it over his head and he starts smashing it. And it's just not like
Mm.
he's not because typically you should like hit it not like like an axe like you would chop and it
Yeah,
would
yeah,
you know
yeah.
it's like that's not gonna your guitar is probably gonna be okay like it's a solid piece of wood
Right.
and then basically in the one that he's using it's not like nice tone wood or anything like that. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like good pieces of quality instruments. It's a flippin' piece of plywood. That thing is gonna outlast us. And so anyway, so come to find out that the strap, when he pulled it up, the strap got tangled on the SM57. So he ended up destroying the Roxy's SM57. Doesn't destroy, I mean, he just looks
Oh
like a goober in front
man.
of three people. So then, anyways, so I see my friend outside and we're talking, whatever. The sound guy comes up. You could tell he just he had that look on his face like, yeah, like, you know, stupid. So he had basically broke off the capsule. And so
Yeah.
he owed him like
Oh
90
yeah.
bucks for a SM57.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
anyways, yeah,
hilarious.
but destroying, I never really had any like desire to rip apart any of my gear.
Right.
It's always
Mm-hmm.
sort of the thing that I kind of want to use for mental clarity.
So, now with the whole music thing, do you see yourself involved in music in 5 years?
I see myself involved in music in 50 years.
Nice.
Yeah, knock
Nice.
on wood that
Yes.
I last that long, but in one form or another, I really feel like so I've taught guitar as well, or
Mm-hmm.
guitar and bass, and I have a drum student right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my my money is made otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm always, I want to share it with music. I want to just, I don't know, be involved. Like I said, I've always felt that music was very participatory, and so I want to do, I'm always going to be playing. I'm always going to be involved in it somehow. So
So, um, what what aspect what aspect has music driven you to be, the person you are today?
I would say it depends. Like so, I think that music is it's such a foundation, and like I said, I think that this applies to everybody, right? Everybody's got their chemistry set of what's made them, the musical chemistry set of what's made them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it's having had music be sort of ways that I've used to sort of elevate myself to challenges. Like, say, for instance, when I was playing baseball in high school, and I'd be on the bus and I'd be listening to Pantera or something hardcore, because I'm going after the other team, and so things like that, I know that that's something where, people, they go to the gym and they're going to transform their body. So they use music to sort of motivate themselves to do that transformation. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. I think that that, there's also the other aspect of, there's music is so deep in terms
Right.
of the amount
Mm-hmm.
that you can learn and not know jack. And
Exactly.
so it's the thing I just, I come home and I play guitar, or I'll play, or I'll be able to sit behind a kit, and just the mental part of putting the sounds together, just, like, all right, you know what, I got to work on my technique in order to get through this like musical phrase or something like that. It's just, that kind of thing. Like I've been able to take that and use it towards, you know, if I have a difficulty at, at my work, the one that pays me, at my work,
Mm-hmm.
or if I have a thing that I'm having to sort of sort out in life or something like that. Like, I don't know, I feel like being able to sort of rely on music to, to sort of give me that that kick and that perspective and that point of view. And, I mean, a lot of my I used to listen to, or not, I still listen to like Public Enemy.
Oh, yeah.
They formed a lot of like my thought process about, things that I would not have understood, coming
Mm-hmm.
from, from my upbringing and being,
Right, right.
not that, not having their same experience. And when I listened to them, I sort of, I've always been like a, I don't want to say an empath. I've always been an empathetic person and wanted to put myself in another person's experience, and why are they
Okay.
writing this and what are they going through, like,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of like 911 is a joke, like that whole thing or
Right.
whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, so that's not my understanding of how that should work, like what's going on there. So I always paid attention to that kind of stuff, and I really am thankful that I've had music to be something that would enlighten me in that way, to be able
Mm-hmm.
to sort of give me that, that awareness on top of sort of nurturing me through things that I'm going through or things that I want to aspire to be, but also things I want to aspire to be on that other side as well.
So, speaking of music, did you or have you visited any studios?
Most recently, I actually booked some studio time at a place called 64 Sound,
Hmm.
which is a great little spot in Highland Park. And I
Cool.
definitely recommend it. It's got like this old kind of like 70s feel, kind of kitsch to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the room sounds great, and I would, in a heartbeat go back there. They've got a great rack of, hey, nice rack. They got a great rack of 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 outboard gear. So, which is really important, if you're gonna do like a multi mic source session.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have a lot of different choices at your disposal. And this is like an affordable spot. I actually got a chance to visit uh what's that place called? NRG Studios. Now that's the
Yeah.
studios in North Hollywood. They've had 311, no doubt. I mean, they were really,
Mm-hmm.
really busy in the 90s, and they were kicking out a bunch of really good like hits and whatnot out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I've heard of that studio.
yeah, so it's great. I mean, I was just like astounded. I didn't even know outboard gear back then. I didn't know what to look
Mm-hmm.
for. If I had have seen an LA two-way, I wouldn't have been able to tell you
Right.
what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a great spot though. I mean, obviously. I've been to Henson Studios, which was formerly A&M. I had
Oh,
some friends that were
cool.
tracking there, and we had a friend of mine was like, he had this big, probably 6-piece, 7-piece drum kit, and they
Mm-hmm.
had about 27 mics on the drums. So they had just all these different like sound, um, you know, uh, all these different sources that were collecting all this different like room, they had like a room mic. That was the first time I saw the sub kick thing where they were taking an NS10 speaker cone and using that as a diaphragm of microphone right in front of the
Mm-hmm.
kick. That kind of thing was just like, very eye-opening, and seeing what they were doing in terms of the sounds. And yeah.
Cool. Um, Look like you got a lot of studio experience there.
Well, I've in these studios, I wouldn't say that I turned a bunch of knobs. I saw things there when I myself, like, I mean, there was budget studios that I'd go to. There was like little demo houses uh in the Inland Empire. They had this studio called Love Juice Laboratories.
Mm.
And yeah, that's hilariously named.
Nice
um
title.
yeah. And so that I did like a couple of bass sessions for a friend's project. And then what was the other place that we'd gone to? um yeah, but I mean, in most of these settings, it was basically just I was showing up um as the instrumentalist, and we had an engineer that was kind of taking care of everything. So I never really got a chance to step into the producer, engineer side of
Mm-hmm.
things, because I think if I'd have touched anything, they'd have chopped off my hands.
Mm. So you're in the box, right?
Currently, yes.
Okay. So what DAW do you use?
So I am proudly using Cakewalk
Oh
as
yeah,
a as my
Cakewalk.
dot of choice, but I also interchange between Cakewalk and Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what I use, but 9 times out of 10, I'm opening Cakewalk and just kind of playing around in there.
Okay, so I know you like Cakewalk. What don't you like about it?
Ooh, okay. So I think there's aspects of the program that I'd want the programmers to update. And one of these is being able to link parameters. And
Mm-hmm.
so, or have ways of being able to sort of link parameters. They have a, they have kind of like, a way where you can sort of, uh, select two parameters, and then you can adjust when say for instance, like if you have an input and an output, right? And you're going
Mm-hmm.
through like a saturation module, then you can link the input and link the output and have them negatively. So when you turn up the input, you turn down the output, so that you can kind of keep
Okay.
the gain. And then you can kind of figure that out. Um, but they have a setting for it, and I think that there's a way of being able to do it where it's not as cumbersome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if things that can take less clicks, I think right now the developers are basically just killing bugs and trying to make it
Yeah.
run as stable as possible.
Mm-hmm.
They added
Yeah.
things like a ranger, they added things like a tempo map, which are great, which I think were good additions based on what they had before. But I think that, because of, if you knew the back, not that you don't know the backstory, but just for listeners, like if you knew the backstory to Cakewalk, you know that the developers right now are sort of like, it's a skeleton crew. There isn't really a lot of developers like there are for something like a Studio One, or if you had like
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, because I've used Pro Tools before, I think it's still much more user friendly than Pro Tools is. And I think that you can
Mm-hmm.
do just about as many things as you can in Pro Tools.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I don't like about it is that I think that you could stand to have some updated things that
Mm-hmm.
right now the developers just don't really have the bandwidth to be able to deal with. Another thing is control surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
They are not as um,
Oh. Oh.
they don't adopt control surfaces as well. So
Boo.
they're on, yeah, exactly. So, and I know that, you using Studio One,
Yeah.
PreSonus, you buy a PreSonus fader port or
Yep.
fader port 8 or 16,
Mhm.
plug it, play it, and then you're good to go. Like
Oh
I'm
yeah.
so jealous of that. They used to be able to do that in Cakewalk with
Mhm.
Mackie surfaces back when
Yeah.
Roland that owned Cakewalk also owned Mackie.
Mhm.
And so they paired that up. And so all of the sort of internal programming or
Mhm.
routing to control surface parameters is based on that. So if your control surface is similar to that sort of Mackie setup, then you're good to
Mhm.
go. But otherwise, you're screwed. So
Mm. So, real quick, how do you approach a mix? What I mean by this, do you start with drums, mixing drums, and then, keyboards and so on,
yeah,
then
so
vocals, or do you do vocals first, or?
you I was complaining to my friend. I was like, you know what? I could tell why my mixes sound so instrument centric. It's because I start with the drums or
Mhm.
start with instruments, right? And so
Mhm.
I tried to start in a different way. And realistically, it just makes sense for me to work like top down. I want the drums to, so when I think about a mix, I think about the drums being the center point of like
Mhm.
where the kick and the snare are going to be almost the loudest things, if not the loudest things in the mix, right?
Mhm.
Very, very seldomly in the new, how the modern mixes, very
Mhm.
seldomly are the kick and the snare not the loudest things in the mix. It drives the
Right.
sound, it's percussive, and
Mhm.
everything else is sort of like a sort of a bed underneath.
Yeah.
Do the drums, I get it pretty much to where I kind of feel good about it. I like roomy drums, where I'm
Mhm.
getting a lot of like the if there's room mics, those are really present. The overheads, I'm taming really loud cymbals. The bands that I've recorded in the past, the drummer, myself included, just hits the brass really hard. So we got to
Mhm.
tame that. I've had to sort of learn how to play my hi-hats really delicate and play the cymbals really delicate, but realistically 9 times out of 10, if you get a smasher, then basically you're just trying to figure out how to minimize all that bleed.
Mhm.
I love really big resonant toms, so I work to get to sort of get dialed in a little bit there, and then I pull up the bass, get
Right.
the bass and the kick to sort of interact and not step on each other's toes.
Mhm.
And then I pull in the guitars and get the guitar to have the guitar's got character, the guitar's got grit and anger. I mean, because I work in the,
What's your compressor on the guitars?
so I typically leave a guitar uncompressed most of the time
Okay.
because the guitar signals that I'm using are
Mhm.
typically pretty like uh they're pretty loud, and they're hitting sort of the
Mhm.
compression point of the uh of their amps anyways.
Okay.
And if I'm using a compressor on a on a guitar that is not super distorted, then probably an 1176.
Okay.
And yeah, with the attack turned up like quite a bit,
Mhm.
really fast release. And the
Mhm.
other thing with that too is uh, I will also uh, I'll also saturate it. And
Okay.
so the
Yeah.
saturation, if there's any like really quick peaks that would sort of sneak in under the attack of the 1176, your saturator is going to catch that. So
Now,
that's a go for it.
oh, I know you're a fan of Nova EQ. So,
Right.
why do you like it so much?
So Nova is it's a very handy kind of one-stop shop for things like so dynamic EQ. So say for instance, if there's a tone that's, like a snare ring that
Mhm.
is just really kind of piercing through the mix. And I don't want the whole snare to be subdued. I just want that little frequency that's poking out, that boom, like I want to pull that
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
So instead of like not, so you could either do a notch filter and pull the whole thing out, and
Mhm.
or if I want other characteristics of that sound, then I will take that frequency, I'll notch it, but it'll be a dynamic notch. So when you hit the snare, it'll trigger the compression, and then as it comes back up, it starts to sound. So it doesn't sound it doesn't sound so EQ'd.
Right.
It's like a way of getting your EQ to sort of be a little bit more transparent, and have the moves being a little bit more transparent. So you're not focused on, like you wouldn't be able to sort of hear anything really change about, the sounds, because typically what happens is that um, you know, the people who are being tracked, they'll fall in love with a sound that they want. So you don't want to
Mhm.
change the characteristic of that sound, but
Right.
to deal with things like resonances or peaks that are just, a little more piercing, then the dynamic EQ helps with that. But also, along with the dynamic EQ, you could also wideband EQ at the same time. So while you're dealing with that bing, you could also give it a little bit of like
Mhm.
give a little bit of that compress, the compressor. I'm saying this like crazy. You can give it some compression
Mhm.
that gives that sort of snap of the, characteristic. It's the characteristic snap of a snare that you would typically hear, in a rock mix, or, anything. You can tailor it to your needs,
Mhm.
but it happens at the same time. So it's basically, you don't have to pull in another compressor. I mean, unless you want that sound.
Right.
But
Yeah.
typically, you would be able to just sort of use that one for all of that. And another thing, last thing I'll say about it is, I have like 9 points of Nova, but the last one is the EQ. By default is auto gain. So you can look for resonances. You can sort of like tailor, the EQ shape or whatever, and you don't have
Mhm.
to go back and dial back you don't have to mess with like the output
Right.
gain. You're basically just like, all right, cool, I can, dial it in, move on to the
Mhm.
next thing. So it's really good with workflow that way.
Yeah. So do you have anything on the master bus when mixing?
So typically not when I'm starting the mix, right?
Okay.
So when I start putting things on the mix bus, I've basically tailored the song the way I kind of want for it to sound already. And
Mhm.
what I want the mix bus, typically I put a compressor on it. I
Mhm.
don't typically EQ. Um, so I put a compressor, a mix bus compressor, and what I'm trying to get that mix bus compressor to do is just to compress, so that everything sort of feels like it belongs together, right? So,
Mhm.
you've got, and it's fairly touching the needle. You're getting the sense that, that the kick is affecting the bass, or the kick
Right.
and the bass are affecting, just enough to where it's like, oh, okay, cool, like I'm getting the sense of, particularly with rock, you want to get a sense of heft, you want there to be a
Right.
fat sound. And so part of
Mhm.
that is, getting that compressor to just pump a little bit, so you can get some of that characteristic of how those sounds are affecting each other.
Okay. So do you do anything outside of music as far as like pay it forward projects?
I would say mostly just the teaching music,
Okay,
right?
that's good. That's good.
Mainly because I want people to have I don't want people to be scared about being with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to have that experience of being able to sort of share music together. And I think that's kind of like if I can do that, then maybe, this world won't be so chaotic. Maybe we'll be
Right.
able to sort of jam together a little bit.
Well, here's the fun part. of the podcast is rapid fire questions
All right,
time.
let's do it. Let's do it.
Yay! Okay. Favorite food?
Sushi.
Nice. Um, Favorite drink?
Bourbon.
Wow, dude.
Either that or a bourbon barrel aged stout. It's
Oh,
delicious.
wow. Okay. Favorite album or artist?
Oh, I go through obsessions. So currently my favorite artist is Dua Lipa.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, either that or Lizzo.
Oh, Lizzo,
Yeah.
really? Okay,
Yeah.
we have to chat. We have to
We got to
talk
talk
about
about.
that later.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Favorite quote or best advice?
Oh. Wow. So I would say my favorite piece of advice is just don't overthink too much. Just
Mm-hmm.
be present and be willing to accept that you might have to stay flexible and change your approach. Because I think that with regards to anything with regard to music, I mean, this also is, I think, a good life lesson as well. But with regards to music, a lot of times you get stuck in sort of a setting where you're thinking, I just have to, if I just go through this, call this thing through, then you start to sort of be so married to what you're doing because you want to see that, you start to get knuckleheaded through it.
Right,
And then
right.
if you change your approach, then you kind of say, okay, well, you know what? This was the way to go. I mean, I've had so many experiences of going through a mix, trying to see that through, and then seeing that, okay, let me take every plugin, let me take everything off, let me start from scratch, and I have a better perspective, and I like the mix a lot better.
Cool. Well, that's it, Cece. We made it. We did it.
We made
Yay.
it. Oh, thank you. Wow.
Look,
That was
thank you
great.
so much. Thank you so much for spilling the tea with she and participating in this podcast. It's always fun talking to you. I consider you a very dear friend. So
Likewise, likewise.
we
No, it was
we
my honor. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you do, and I can't wait for the next guests and what you're able to pull out of them as well.
yeah, in 2023 I got like 6 people lined up. They
Woo!
just calling me and they want to do this thing and they want
Well,
to
that's
talk
just
about
now. That's six people just now.
But hey, I want you to come back cuz you're going to you promised me a show about drumming techniques or
Yes,
something.
absolutely. I would love to show kind of how I sort of pulled my own kind of drum language together, and
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that you'd like it. I think that it would be helpful.
Oh yeah, let's get back together on that one cuz uh drummers, they love talking about drums, so that would
Right.
be perfect. Be a perfect topic for the next show that we do together. But thanks again, and you rock, dude.
Oh, you rock. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. And take care.
All right, all right. We're gonna sign off.